Well, welcome once more from Leicester. This is our God Squad reflection from Mark, the series in Mark, where we find Jesus again in conflict with the Pharisees and the Herodians this time. Well, my name's Nigel, I'm the European President, and it's a pleasure to be able to share this with you. And it's a cold one today, but we're still going. So Mark 12:13 to 17, I'm going to read it through. Well, later they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to Jesus to catch him in his words. They came to him and said, "Teacher, we know that you are a man of integrity. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are, but you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. Is it right to pay imperial tax to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we?" But Jesus knew their hypocrisy. "Why are you trying to trap me?" he asked. "Bring me a denarius and let me look at it." They brought the coin and asked, "Whose image is this? And whose inscription?" "Caesar's," they replied. Then Jesus said to them, "Give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's." And they were amazed at him. Well, here he goes, and he's again in this conflict situation with religious leaders, with power structures, and it's really interesting. It is in conflict now again with the Pharisees, who he's been in conflict with for a long time, making people carry burdens that they themselves weren't prepared to carry. The Herodians now were also sent, and the Herodians were a political party. They were supporters of the Herodian dynasty. So King Herod was the king there. He was a puppet king, but the Herodians were political supporters. They were Jewish, they were Greek Jews, but they were supporting Herod. So it was really significant that Jesus was having this discussion and that these questions were asked of him, because in some ways they were representative not only of the religious parties, but also of the kingly party there. So it was a real trap for Jesus. Well, it started off with them saying to Jesus, "We know that you're a man of integrity, that you're not swayed by other people, that you don't pay attention to who they are." You've talked to anyone probably the same, I would imagine. "You teach the way of God according to the truth." Well, you'd think these must be friends of Jesus, these must be supporters, saying all these good things. But it's interesting, there's a fine line between compliments and flattery. And here we find that these weren't actually compliments. They were the truth, but they were flattery. And they were intended to put Jesus off guard. And sometimes we find that, don't we? We find people saying all good things about us. And we think, oh, well, they must be on board with us. And then we find later they're saying things behind our backs. Or they're trying to trip us up or catch us. And nothing changes. And for Jesus, this was the same here. But he recognised all of this, and it was all true. He had integrity, Jesus. He wasn't swayed by others. He didn't pay attention to who he was talking to, whether it was a king or whether it's a poor man begging in the streets. He treated them all equally, not by what rank they were, but by who they were, the person they were. And that's really important for us as well, that we're not swayed by political leadership or hierarchy of guys out there, but that we treat each person as a person with equal dignity and respect. And then they say, yeah, you teach the way of God according to the truth. Well, that's exactly what Jesus did. So, and then the trap springs, and he asked the question, is it right to pay imperial tax to Caesar? Well, that's a reasonable question, isn't it? thinking Jesus had the answers to this. Is it right to pay that imperial tax? And it's a general question. You know, we could, when you ask questions like that, people think and maybe respond, maybe come up with an answer. So it was a general question, but it was a question intended to trap Jesus. And then they asked a specific question: should we pay or shouldn't we? Well, this is a completely different kettle of fish. So they've set him up with this general question: is it right to do this, do you think? What do you reckon, Jesus? And then, should we do this? Should we do that? And it was a real trap, because if he said yes, then it'd be seen to be siding with the authorities. It'd be seen by siding with those who were oppressing the Jewish people, the poor. But if he said no, then it'd be seen to be going against the Caesar and the authorities, and he would have been in danger there of being arrested. And so we need to find people's motives. That's the key, not the question itself, but the motive behind it. And we need to ask questions like that. What is their motive? Ask why they're saying this. Look at the character of the person. These Pharisees and Herodians, are they characters who are being straight, or in their character, in what we know about them, are they being deceitful? And sometimes I deal with stuff like that, and I have to think, well, what's the character of the person? Can I trust them? Is what they're saying intended as a question, or is it something deeper? And we need to ask these questions as well. Well, it says Jesus recognised the trap. He knew their hypocrisy, and the mask was off. And again, I've mentioned what hypocrisy came from. It came from the players in the theatre in those days, in the Greek theatres, and the hypocrisy basically was they were wearing these actors were wearing masks and becoming someone else. They were still the same person, but they were pretending to be someone else. That's what acting is. And this was what these were doing, pretending to be someone else, pretending to be a friend. And the mask was off. Jesus unmasked them. He almost picked it off and said, I recognise you. I know what you're doing. So he saw straight through the hypocrisy. So how did he answer? He couldn't answer yes or no. He couldn't refuse to answer the question. So what did he do? He was brilliant, and this was Jesus's real wisdom. And he took this coin. He says, can I have a denarius? And he asked them, and they gave him a denarius. And he said, whose image is on that coin? Well, that was Caesar's. Whose inscription is on the coin? Caesar's. Well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. Well, this coin in particular, coins can be really significant things, and Jesus was brilliant at picking out this coin, asking him for a coin. And this actual coin, I got from America. A guy gave it me. Was doing a bit of a talk in the church in America, and I was talking about when I became a Christian, when I got married, the year I got married and became a Christian. And this guy gave me this coin, and he says, yeah, this will be a good memory for you. And I looked at it and I thought, well, George Washington, what's that got to do with anything? And then I looked further, and it says on these American coins, in God we trust. So I thought, well, that's significant. But then I looked even further, and it was 1985, and that was the year that I became a Christian, that I got married, and my faith journey began. So these coins can hold some significance when we look deeply into them, and that's what Jesus did. So he said, whose image? Caesar's. Whose inscription? Caesar's. Well, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. Real wisdom there. And sometimes we need to do that. We need to have real wisdom in our responses to people. We need to think, is this an authentic question? Is it not? Is this a trap? Or is it real? We need to look at the person. Can we trust them? Have we had experience of these people? Or are they out to trap us? Are they wearing a mask? And this is what Jesus did. So with this religious power, he came against them and turned it round. With this political power, these political guys, he came against them and turned it round. And what a genius. So let's do the same. Let's treat each other with dignity. Let's treat those who are the highest with dignity and those who are the lowest. But let's treat them all the same. Let's be right with people as Jesus did. And let's have wisdom. Amen.